So I get to the hotel. It's a nice one, Zilad, and it's too expensive. So then I go to another one. It's simpler, and it's like $9 instead of $40. And they end up. I go back to have dinner there because I just said I'm gonna buy dinner there because why not? The dinner looks really good, and they kind of eat in a family style way. So when I arrive there, they say I meet the owner, who ends up being a minister, which is really interesting, and he works with people with disabilities. And I could say I've had some challenges with different learning difficulties. So I said I really want to connect with him. I spoke with him Russian a lot. He's like, "You're Armenian, we're Tajik, Persian descent, kind of the Aryan connection, the Indo-European connection." So I was like, okay, great. And we just talked a lot, and I understood about 80% of what they said to me in Russian. Could even understand some parts of Tajik because a lot of Uzbek words are actually borrowed from Persian. So asleep there, he says, just come stay at our hotel. We'll cover you, food, housing. I said, all right, great, but I want to do something nice for the young people that you work with because he helps families, he helps elderly people. In general, Tajikistan, some of Uzbekistan, family members, parents are often taken care of by their children. Sometimes the children do go out of the country, but usually there's a couple of children. There's not usually just one child, and one of them will stay with the parent. So it's very different than American or some European societies where parents actually live far away from children. And he helps with his agency to help with the older people as well, or people who are abandoned, or people who have developmental disabilities. So I go afterwards when I head back to Dushanbe and I meet some of the young people he works with. And I bring some gifts for them, some developmental delay activities that can help with their manual skills, their hands. So I'll tell more about that in a moment. And they're really nice. I stayed there. I spoke a lot with his wife's brother, who was really interesting. He had been to Mecca, and he just had a really interesting view on life. I would always say, thanks God, Shukr Allah, for whenever anything happened, when, food, or just when we were seeing beautiful nature. Look at the mountains. The mountains were amazing there. So it's a large lake that was created by water, basically going there. It may have been the rocks. And they kind of opened up an area, or naturally an area opened up and it becomes a river. So all these lakes kind of lead up to rivers, and they come from the melting snow caps of the mountains. And I believe there was some story related to Iskandar Alexander the Great's horse somehow getting lost in the river and the lake, and you'll go at certain times of the day and the magical horse appears. So anyway, I go with them. I go up to the different villages. I buy some natural honey. I just relax. The water's way too cold to swim in. And eventually when I do swim in another lake, I have a lot of pain. So that was one of the things. I helped a woman bring lots of sausages and cheese and other items, and I had a lot of pain after, which was really annoying. Pain is like over here, still have a little bit. And I was also sitting in cars for a long period of time. So eventually, it's time for me to go. But I didn't mention I met some really interesting guys. They were partying, and it was like partying in the desert, in the mountains. It was very interesting. I end up getting a ride with those guys back to the crossroad, and I need to go to Panjikent, which is another city on the border of Samarkand. As we're going through, I'm trying to find out how am I going to get there, I'm staying maybe 30 minutes or an hour waiting in a kind of bus stop. Eventually a guy stops. He has someone who's paid part of the way to get to the village where I was near. And then I jump in his car. So I'm going to Panjikent. He says, I'm also going there. His car is filled with cabbage. So he's basically bringing products from one place to another. So I join him. He ends up being Uzbek, family genetically originally from Syria, but living in Tajikistan. So that was really interesting. We spoke in Russian, and then we moved to Uzbek. And he was really friendly, and we stopped at a place where there was water that was dripping from the mountain, and it was keeping all these drinks cold. And that was really beautiful. So eventually he brings me near to Panjikent, but he has to deliver all these vegetables. He's trying to figure out where, and he has to go to some villages and kind of sell it like bit by bit. He finds out the price of what it costs. So basically, I became an assistant to a vegetable seller on my way of trying to getting to the next place, which is called Haftakul, Seven Lakes. And I ended up not going with him all the way. I take another ride. I wait again on another ride for maybe 40 minutes for more people to come. They come. I start talking in Russian with the guy, asking about how to get Haftakul for the best price. And he says, you have to get this number of this taxi driver. He's my friend, and I help you. So eventually I get that number, and I arrive in Panjikent. So when I arrive there, I go to 3 hotels. The first one is okay, and they just want to drop me off, but I felt like I wanted to go first to drop off the other people. I just was listening kind of my own intuition. Then I go to a second hotel. It's okay, more expensive than the first. And then I'm in the road kind of bargaining with the taxi driver about possible ways to get to Haftakul. And while I'm there, I see someone call my name. Hey, Armin. Turn around. It was the guy I met in Dushanbe, who was from Indiana, but from Afghanistan originally. And he's with his friend's father, his friends in the U.S., and they invite me to go stay with them. So I'm talking Uzbek, I'm excited, I go stay at their house, and then the next day we go to Haftakul, 7 Lakes. We spend time at the 7 Lakes, going all the way up with the driver from the person who I met, thanks to the ride that I took when my original driver didn't get me all the way to Panjikent. Beautiful lakes, beautiful mountains. There's 7 lakes that lead into each other through rivers or also through underneath the ground. When there was one avalanche between 2 of the lakes, and it kind of collapsed one of the rivers or the waterfalls that used to be there hundreds of years ago. So we just spent time, we saw people, we ate food, brought our own food, we met others, they shared their food with us, and it was just a beautiful experience. And then we head back, and on our way up, we had, I think, 1 flat. On the way down, we had a second flat. We destroyed the tire because we drove for about 3 miles, 5-7 kilometers with a popped tire. We made it to one of these spots where there's a lot of gold. So there's a lot of gold up in a lot of these mountains. A lot of the gold goes into the rivers. The rivers take it to Zadafshan in Uzbekistan, and not all the gold that's even in the country stays in the country, just goes away. So they do have some in the mountains. There's a lot of Chinese companies in different mountains. There are other companies from other countries, but most Chinese, what I saw. So we're over there waiting, and there's a city on the way or town on the way, and someone eventually gives us their tire, and we head our way back. And then I'm exhausted, but I need to get home because the next day I'm going to be meeting the minister and also some of his staff there. And I take a ride, and I'm in pain, but I make it. And then I get to Dushanbe. I meet some young people by going to the center where they stay. It's a center for people with developmental disabilities. They have music therapy, they have art therapy, they have movement therapy, and I just brought them some games. And on Friday, I ate out that day. A lot of people after Friday prayers, they just walk out in the streets when they're done. There's thousands of people walking in the streets. It was really interesting downtown. And then I chilled, and I went to a museum, learned about the history of the region, different empires. Went to Samani statue, which is a large statue of a Tajik king who kind of united the empire. And then I tried to buy some gifts. There's a really cool Soviet CCP store where they have different Soviet items. You could try to find it if you go there. And then I had to have lunch with some of the teachers who I met when I did an online class. And then I just headed back to Uzbekistan. So Tajikistan is really cool. Highly encourage you to check it out and just stay open to the unknown. And thank you for listening.